This video is intended to go along with your note-taking guide entitled Apuntes, Palabras negativas y afirmativas. Let's start with a review of your affirmative and negative words. You can see this chart has been set up with the affirmative words on the left and the negative words on the right. And it's also been set up so that they correspond. If you read across the row, you basically have the affirmative and its negative counterpart. Rule number 1. Negative and affirmative words can sometimes be placed in two different places in the sentence. 1a. All negative affirmative words can be placed after a verb by putting no before the verb and the negative word after the verb. So for example, yo no miro nunca la televisión, or yo no miro la televisión nunca. In both of these sentences, the word no has been placed directly in front of the verb miro. In the top sentence, nunca immediately follows the verb miro, whereas in the bottom sentence, nunca has been placed at the end of the sentence. But in both cases, no comes before the verb and nunca after. 1b. Some negative and affirmative rules can be placed before a verb. These words are siempre, nunca, también, tampoco. So for example, yo nunca miro la televisión would be another way of saying I never watch television. In this case, rather than putting no before the verb, we've put nunca before the verb. Remember, there's only these 4 words that we can do that with. Siempre, nunca, también, tampoco. Rule 2. Use algún and ningún before a masculine singular noun. So for example, do you like any costume? ¿Te gusta algún disfraz? Because el disfraz is a masculine singular noun, and when we put alguno before it, we drop the O and add an accent over the U. ¿Te gusta algún disfraz? Or the negative answer, no, I don't like any costume. No, no me gusta ningún disfraz. Again, we dropped the O and accented the U of ninguno to ningún because disfraz is a masculine singular noun that follows it. Before discussing Rule 3, let's review the forms of alguno and ninguno. With this, we have, so alguno, remember, sometimes changes to algún, but can also change to alguna, algunas, and algunas. Ningún will only change to ninguno and ninguna. Ningunos and ningunas can never be used in Spanish. Spanish uses the singular form, even where we would use the plural form in English. In just a moment, we'll get into a couple examples of that. So, here are your examples. I don't have any books, is how we would say it in English. In Spanish, though, we say, yo no tengo ningún libro. Ningún libro is singular, even though in English we say books. And you can think of this as, I don't have even one book. Or ¿tienes algunas hermanas? Do you have any sisters? No, no tengo ninguna hermana. We would usually translate that as, no, I don't have any sisters. But notice that it's ninguna hermana, which is singular, even though in English we use the plural sisters. And again, just think of this as, no, I don't have even one sister. Let's do some practice. I don't have anything. No tengo nada. Remember, we placed the no in front of the verb to make that negative, and then so we have to use nada, the negative word, even though in English we would say anything. Or I have something, yo tengo algo. Everything in that sentence is affirmative. There are no negatives. There is no one here. No hay nadie aquí. So from that one in English, we have mostly negative sentences, or mostly negatives in the sentence, no one. Because we're using that nadie, the no one, the negative, we have to also make the verb negative by placing no in front of I. Or then to say there is someone here, hay alguien aquí. I want either a steak or a hamburger. Quiero o un bistec o una hamburguesa. Everything in that sentence is positive. There aren't any negatives to tell us to use the negative forms. Or versus the sentence, I don't want to eat either a steak or a hamburger. Even though both sentences are either or on the English translations, because we use don't in the second sentence, we have to use all negative words then in Spanish. No quiero ni un bistec ni una hamburguesa. Do you have any pencils? ¿Tienes algunos lápices? Everything is positive on that one, so we use the affirmative words, no negatives there. Or I don't have any pencils, no tengo ningún lápiz. Remember, in Spanish, we do not use the plural form of ningunos or ningunas. Even though in English we would say pencils, in Spanish we make this singular ningún lápiz. I don't have even one pencil. Another way of doing this, though, if you didn't want to use ningún, you wanted to use ninguno, you can actually do that by not saying pencils. If you just say I don't have any, and let the pencils part be implied, the Spanish translation would be no tengo ninguno. So we still use the O at the end of that word in that situation because there's no noun following. I always do my homework. Yo siempre hago mi tarea. Or yo hago mi tarea siempre. Remember, siempre is one of those words we can put either before the verb or after it. Or to say I never do my homework, yo nunca hago mi tarea, or no hago mi tarea nunca. Again, nunca can go before or after the verb. When we choose to put it after, though, we have to use no before the verb. I like to run too. Me gusta correr también, or también me gusta correr. It can go before or after the verb. I don't like to run either. No me gusta correr tampoco. Tampoco me gusta correr. When we put the tampoco after the verb, we put no in front of it, whereas when we put tampoco before the verb, we don't have to use no. Just a few closing thoughts for you here. This is not on your notes sheet, but I think it's important and helpful to think about and know. So remember, if the word no appears in a sentence, then you should be using the negative words, not the affirmative. Because even though in English we don't use double negatives, and that's a really big deal, in Spanish, if one thing in the sentence is negative, then everything else in that sentence is going to need to use the negative form as well. So that's it for your notes for today. Please stop in and see me if you have any questions. We'll be continuing to practice this in class and on homework in the next few days.